This video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised. Everything I'm sharing is my opinion.
This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It's free and it helps me out a lot. Well, hello, come on in. What if David was playing mind games with Celeste in the months leading up to what happened to her? Just like Chris Watts did with Shanann and Bella and Cece leading up to when they were done away with also. So this video is for adults only. Everything I'm sharing with you is my opinion, and David is innocent until proven guilty. Now, how he meshed was Josh Marshall with his clients. He said he didn't really deal with David on a day-to-day basis. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but basically distancing themselves. But there's some photos and some other information that say otherwise, in my opinion. So I want to look at some new images and see what these reveal about David. So come on in, tell me where you're from. You can tell me what city, what state, what country, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. So today we're going to be discussing David's head games with Celeste in the days leading up to her final photo. We're going to talk about new information regarding David's manager, Josh Marshall, and his enmeshment with his clients. We're going to look at some new images of David taken by a fan that I believe was him, David snitching on himself. And I want to give a huge shout out to Njaz and Deanna, Antonia, Master Death Hancock, and Veronica for all of your great research. You guys have emailed me a lot of great information. So let's go through these photos that we have. So we have this photo. This is David. We're going to start with the photos and then we're going to dive into everything else. But I do think it's appropriate just in light of everything that we know so far. So I want to start with this photo. This says heaven. And then below it, it says DEA. Okay. I enhanced it for you. Take a close look. This is David singing at the concert. These are the original photos that were taken by a fan. And then if you look here, you can clearly see it says heaven and then the DEA dead, right? Here's another one. Same photo. Heaven. And so I think David was snitching on himself. I want to show you a couple other things. Just want to remind you of this Hello Kitty shirt. This was said heavenly celestial on it. And, Celeste is the meaning of the name Celeste is celestial, right? So the fact that he's saying heavenly celestial on his shirt in Hello Kitty wearing pink, I think is worth noting. So I do think that David was snitching on himself, in my opinion, allegedly. And this is a close-up of the shirt. But wait, I have some more stuff to show you. So this is the final photo of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Please say her name. Put some purple hearts in the chat for her. I wonder what she was thinking. This is the final photo that we have. I don't know if the police have more photos of her, but this was taken, according to private investigator Steve Fisher, this was taken on January 2nd of 2025. So just a little over, it'll be 4 days in a year today at the time that we're filming this. So what was she thinking about? And there was also, David has this exact same shirt in an upload that he posted in his laundry. This exact same shirt one day that he posted one day after Celeste was seen wearing this shirt. So I think that there are so many ties between David. Okay, so I want to talk about this. This is the photo that Chris Watts uploaded regarding, he said that, claimed that one of the girls did this. And, this is why I titled this the way that I did, the mind games that were being played here. And we're going to talk about what the photo from PI Steve Fisher and Celeste revealed, but I want to talk about a little bit about this. Multiple psychological theories suggest that somebody like David, allegedly he's innocent until proven guilty, or Chris Watts or Brian Kohlberger, they all derive a form of joy, you guys, or satisfaction from sending a photo like what Chris sent to Shanann, even if that joy is different from like how you or I would typically experience happiness, right? So I think that there are, Chris Watts famously repressed his actions. They do align with several sociopathic and psychopathic behavioral patterns as identified by multiple experts. And if David has a certain personality disorder, a similar one, I'm not saying he does or doesn't. I'm just asking a question, but wouldn't he have gotten a thrill from this too? This photo that he put up of Celeste. Let me put this up. The one that he put up with the mirrored photo of her head, and then followed that up with the hand holding the knife. Wouldn't he have gotten joy from that? Just like a similar kind of duping delight. So duping delight is what sociopaths often experience. It's a specific form of thrill. It's a specific form of happiness. It's not happiness like what you or I would feel, but it's from successfully deceiving or successfully manipulating others and sending a warning that victims fail to realize. And isn't that what happened to Shanann and Bella and Cece? That photo, Chris Watts was clearly telegraphing what he was going to do. And wasn't David doing something similar in the photo that he put? Let me put this up. Let me back up. That he put up of Celeste with the two heads, a mirrored image of her, and with the his hand holding the knife, that photo. And wouldn't he gotten a thrill of wearing a shirt like this that says "in heaven" and then the word DEA and dead, and then putting that on the back of his shirt while he sang the lyrics to "In the back of my mind I illed you" with a K, and wearing the divine celestial. That would have given him a sense of thrill, in my opinion. And I think that he was telegraphing when he posted that photo, of the mirrored photo of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, 14-year-old girl. Just let that sink in. I think he would have gotten a thrill out of the double-headed, this photo right here of her mirrored head. And this image was posted, and it was followed immediately by this image of him holding the knife against the cityscape. So that was followed immediately by the other image. So I think he would have gotten a sense of thrill from this, in my opinion. He's innocent until proven guilty, but I think that Chris Watts admitted to investigators that he sent that photo of the doll being covered up by a sheet to Shanann after he had decided to do away with his family. He wanted to, quote, see her reaction. So I think he would have gotten a thrill out of that. And I think the same thing applies in this case. So it suggests that David may have used the image of her mirrored head and then the photo of the knife as a cognitive or psychological exercise. This would have tested his control over the situation before the actual crime was committed. And again, I'm just sharing my opinion. David is innocent until proven guilty. But David, who I believe is not that talented, I can't play it for you, but I heard him singing without the voice enhancers on the Reddit group, the D4viots group, which is a really great Reddit group, by the way. And he was in there, and he doesn't even sound like he's on key. I can't play it for you because I don't have the copyright to play his music, but I don't think he's that talented. I definitely don't think he's a genius. And in my opinion, David is nothing more than a simple copycat loser. And I think he did something similar to what Chris Watts did. I think he used an image, or in this case, images, to of Celeste's head and him holding the knife, to see what kind of a reaction he would get, not just from Celeste, but other people. And his followers didn't, seem to notice. So this would have been considered a dark joke. It's a really cruel thing to do. Most experts believe this is somebody with anti-personality disorder would do something like this, antisocial personality disorder. I'm not saying that's what David has, or he's innocent until proven guilty, but inflicting unearned psychological duress or psychological suffering can be a source of personal aggrandizement, right? He would feel superior and grandiose over Celeste, over a little 13, 14-year-old girl. How pathetic is he? Um, so this does make me worry about what Celeste's final days were, and what she would have been feeling like under the influence of this man. I think that he did entice her away from her family. I think he pretended he wanted to have a romantic relationship with her, and then even posted a picture of her hand with a ring on it. So I just wonder how much pleasure he got from knowing he had no intention of keeping any of those promises to Celeste. And what's worse is that he was planning, in my opinion, to take everything away from her. So, gaslighting and power, this is another motivation behind sending these unsettling and cryptic images that David did in the putting the numbers 7 and 4 and 6. You guys know that goes in a different order. In his imagery would have given him a thrill. Posting the picture of the Celeste finger with the ring on it, with his name tattooed on that finger, would have given him a sense of grandiosity and superiority over her. Posting the mirrored image of her face and head, with followed immediately by the knife, again would have been just a way for him to say, I know better than you do. And it leaves the recipient, and this is why I do wonder about this final photo that we have of Celeste, of just feeling confused and second guessing, which is the primary motivation behind someone who is seeking power and domination over that. So Shanann's reply to Chris Watts was, "Don't know what to think about this." And this confirms to me that Shanann was unsettled. She effectively did give Chris the reaction that he was looking for. She also shared it on her Facebook, which is the only reason that we know about it. And it makes me wonder what type of reaction Celeste would have had as a 13, 14-year-old, seeing her head mirroring photograph followed by his hand holding a knife. At this point, in my opinion, she would have been completely under his control. She would have been totally reliant on him. She had run away from home. Her family had reported her missing. And this man was completely, she completely relied on him, both for her physical safety and physical security, and her emotional too. So I just wonder, like, what was really going on here. So the ego preservation through a warning, which is what I think a lot of this is one psychological theory says that sending an image like with what Chris Watts sent to Shanann and what David posted regarding Celeste was telling, also a way for David, allegedly, in my opinion, to tell Celeste, to warn her about what he was going to do. Remember, his whole game on his music was, I'm a loner, I'm a bad guy, I need you to make me a good guy. And that's a lot of psychological pressure, in my opinion, to put on a 13 or 14-year-old child. So this distorted logic would have helped a sociopath like Chris Watts or like David, in my opinion, maintain the good guy persona publicly in their own mind, because then they would be able to blame Celeste or blame Shanann, because it's like, well, hey, I warned her. I put the picture of her and I held up the knife. I warned her. She didn't listen. Because, of course, a 13 or 14-year-old who thinks she's in love with you is not going to pick up on that. Even a grown woman is not going to pick up on that. So ultimately, while Chris Watts may not have felt bad, his behavior indicates that he, and so I'm just juxtaposing this with David, may have found a way to telegraph about what he was going to do, kind of a hidden in plain sight signal psychologically. And this would have given him, allowed him to savor the planning of his crime. So was David feeling a similar satisfaction? Put a 1 in the chat if you think he was. Put a 2 in the chat if you disagree, you think that he was not feeling a satisfaction, and that these images are just a coincidence. But just think about the fact that David did release songs on Celeste's birthday, and I think that Each time he would have done something like that, he would have had an extreme sense of gratification and self-satisfaction and feeling of superiority over Celeste, because he knew what he was going to do to her, in my opinion, as early as 2023, when he started the video for romantic homicide. So if you think back to what Chris Watts said to Shanann, he was telegraphing what he was going to do to Bella and Cece, wasn't he? And he was telegraphing what he was going to do to her. Wasn't she found wrapped in a sheet? So Shanann received this message from Chris, and and she posted it on Facebook, which is why we know about it. So psychopaths do love games, and I think that Chris Watts would have been toying with Shanann for days. I think he was playing mind games. I think he was reeling her in. And do you think it's possible that David was doing something similar to Celeste? Was he reeling her in of promises of an engagement ring? And promises of when you turn 18. Remember those lyrics in the song, when you wait 7 years, right? So promises, while pushing her away at the same time. So was he planning this all in advance? And what really bothers me about the photo that David posted of Celeste and what Chris Watts posted is, and I wonder about Chris Watts, is did Bella and Cece see that photo too? And what did they think? So just thinking about this final photo of Celeste, this last photo of her, wearing the hoodie, just this one last sad image of her, just makes me wonder, what was she thinking? What was she feeling at this point? Did she want to go home? Was she sad? Was she lonely? And this photo was taken just one day before the the um, the the picture of the headed mirror and the knife was taken one day before this hoodie photo was taken. So David did post this. So does this prove that David was planning everything in advance? What do you guys think? Are you watching closely? So what clues can we see in this photo of Celeste? This is the last known photo that we have of this sweet girl. What was she thinking and feeling just the night before David had posted that mirroring image? And then seconds later, he posted the image of himself holding the knife against the skyline. And so, was she feeling afraid? If she was afraid, would she have had the ability to run at this point? So the clues on David's shirts of him singing, about, in the back of my mind, I'm going to ill you. I think this is also very telling. I think this is him. He dropped so many breadcrumbs about what he was going to do, and what he did, in my opinion, allegedly. But it gets worse because David turns around and you can see what's written on the back of the shirt. And I believe that, it says in heaven and it says debt. So clearly David thought he was more clever than all of us. He thought he was going to wear these shirts that meant all of this to him. And this, in my opinion, would have been another way for him to savor what he did, right? And the celestial heaven shirt, with the in the Hello Kitty wear, would have been just another way to drop hints. The mock funeral that he was traveling around with, this adolescent size casket holding mock funerals. Again, and he's wearing this, a skull is on the front of this shirt where he has heaven and the other word. So I think David was dropping clues for all of us to see. I think he was dropping clues right and left. But I think that, not all narcissists are sociopaths. In fact, most aren't, but for sure, all sociopaths are narcissists. So I think David would have definitely felt very superior. He was a celebrity now. He had people just wanting to be his friend. And I think this would have added to his sense of entitlement and his sense of grandiosity. So does this prove that David was planning everything in advance? Let's look at this together. Let me take this down for a second. Okay, trying to remove this. There it goes. Okay, So this is from the D4VD Idiots group, and I just want to again shout out to Deanna and Enjaz and Master Death Hancock and Antonia for sending me these. So this says, let me pull this up really big. It says, David, I wanted to feel it. The very first DIY at first because of me making all of my music on my phone and then bringing it to the screen. I wanted it to feel like it was made in a backyard and not too high of a production, but it still felt like a story was being told and the story was being told correctly. So this is David talking here. He says, all of my music videos are kind of, I won't say chronological order, but they fit together like a big puzzle piece. I agree. He continues, he says, I'm trying to build up in a way that everyone will be able to understand without having to question anything or ask too many questions. The greatest stories are interpreted by the actual audience. So if I can keep a clear motive, and I think that's a little language slippage in my opinion, and a clear story that everyone is able to comprehend, then I think that's where the success is. I'm going to keep building it out slowly, and I'm going to keep showing the people where it's heading and giving these little hints and little Easter eggs. Oh, I think he did do that here and there. And I think that these hints and Easter eggs are going to come back because it's going to show premeditation. And I think it's going to show that he, was stitching on himself the whole time. He says, and that'll show up in the music and in the visuals. Oh, don't worry, David, it did. And hopefully it evolves into maybe a manga one day, or maybe even an anime or show, but I just got to keep building it. So he definitely was, not feeling any remorse or feeling bad about this. He was, feeling really good about himself, in my opinion. Let me take this down and let me put this up. So, how far in advance was he planning this? In my opinion, he was thinking about this early on, back when Celeste was 11 or 12. And I think that he was planning this for an even longer time. Oh, this one got deleted. I was going to show you this other one. I'll have to get screenshots before stuff gets deleted. It comes down so fast. So let's talk. I want to talk about, let me put this back up. All right. So I want to talk about, over the past few years, law enforcement agencies, online journalists, online sleuths, safety researchers have all raised alarm about this online network, which I think that Slayer image does harken back to it. And it doesn't work like a traditional organization. There's no headquarters, there's no official members list. So is this why we have this big delay with the grand jury? Are they having to go through all of these Easter eggs, as David likes to call them, all of these clues where David is literally snitching on himself, go through all of the eyewitnesses and try to figure out what's going on? Or is this, let me know what you think, yes or no. Are there more people involved in this? Because if we take a closer look as to why, not through the rumors or the shock value, but through psychology, documented patterns and expert analysis, I think it gives us a lot of clues. So investigations into online Discord extremist groups point to one thing. It points to a vulnerability, right? So these groups don't recruit randomly. They look for individuals who show signs of isolation, emotional distress, or social disconnection, and often teenagers who spend a lot of time online. And doesn't that describe Celeste, right? As a runaway, as a missing child, she would have been very isolated. I think her last months would have been extremely stressful. And I think that she was disconnected from her peers and people in her own age group, her family and friends. She, I guess her family says they were hearing from her, but were they hearing her voice or were they getting text messages? So at this stage of, Celeste's life as a 13 or 14-year-old, her identity would have still been forming, right? She would have wanted to feel like belonging matters and being seen matters. And this Discord group, they understand this. They know that belonging matters. So recruitment doesn't usually begin. And I think it's important that we understand this because by learning about this, we can help protect other kids. So it really begins with anything overtly harmful. It starts quietly with private messages, shared servers, or casual conversation. They romance them, and and they do this through validating. So I think that, Celeste would have felt listened to. I think she would have felt complimented. I think she would have felt like he was in love with her, and she would have felt understood. And I think at the same time that he's doing this, I think, in my opinion, allegedly, he was stoking angst, normal teenage angst for her to feel against her family. So this would have created a sense of trust from Celeste and eventually, in my opinion, a total reliance on him for everything: her food, her shelter, her emotional and psychological well-being, as well as her physical well-being. So from an investigator's standpoint, this technique mirrors what many DV type of relationships do, right? And this is why experts use the word, CVLT when they're describing this groups like this. So it's got kind of an us versus them ideology where outsiders are framed as threats. And this was evidenced by David when he was doing the live stream and somebody asked who Celeste was. He was like, you're a Fed. And it definitely had a us versus them, in my opinion, type of sense from David. So I think also that he would have been encouraging members of the group, Celeste in particular, to distrust her own family, her own friends, her school. And he would have probably had her doing escalating loyalty tests, in my opinion, allegedly, rewarding obedience and punishing doubt. And so eventually what happens is the identity of the person begins to erode. And where Celeste might have had some personal boundaries, probably not a lot, because at 13, 14 years old, you don't have a lot of boundaries. But this would have been replaced, in my opinion, by David's expectations. So I think that, you know, it's hard enough for an adult to overcome a group like this, but imagine just being a kid and being in one of these chat rooms. And, this all occurs mostly on Discord and Roblox, which is where, David was. So status becomes currency for somebody like David, right? The more status and popular, it would have been currency. And so I think that before he, was seeking out a music career, I think he would have been seeking out status in a different way, which is, in my opinion, how he originally got involved in this group. Um, and so I'm just wondering if this is why we have the grand jury just taking so much time to go through everything, because maybe there's a lot to go through. So the groups like this Discord group rely on being obscure. They thrive on people not knowing how coercion works. And this is why it's so important that we talk about this group and that we, call it out, because it reduces their ability to isolate and control other people, right? And the illusion about the group begins to break, because healthy communities don't demand secrecy, do they? They don't punish questions, and they don't use fear to be able to function. And I believe that David absolutely demanded secrecy of Celeste. I think that he absolutely, I think she would have been afraid of him toward the end, in my opinion, allegedly. So when groups like this, when they're when experts are describing groups like this, they're not just using the CVLT type of word casually. They're applying decades of psychological and sociological research. And these groups aren't defined by strange beliefs or shocking behavior all by themselves. They are defined by a pattern of control. If you think about the cycle of DV, there's good times and then there's not so good times. So to understand why a group like this Discord group, allegedly, that I believe that David was involved with, allegedly, in my opinion, you know, I do think that the historical context of of how experts have described groups like this are, and the similarities that this group has to the CVLTs, are very difficult to ignore. So they're not just about beliefs, in my opinion. This wasn't just about belief. It's about power and domination. And isn't that what David wanted from Celeste? Isn't that why he couldn't let her go? Right? He parked that car on Bluebird Avenue before when he had left town. We know this because the car got ticketed there. But this time was different. He didn't get to come back and put the car back in the garage with Celeste in the trunk, which is what he was doing before. This time, neighbors called it in because I think the car was starting to look worse and worse. It was starting to look more and more dirty, probably the first few times he parked it. And I believe this car was parked in other locations besides Bluebird Avenue additionally. And I don't know how long she was in that front trunk of his Tesla, but I suspect it was for a while. And if you think about like groups like the Nexium group or Heaven's Gate, you can see that they slowly replace somebody's personal judgment and their ability to discern what's good for me and what's not good for me, right? From group authority. And so, you know, I don't think that the method has changed. I don't think that the psychology has changed. I think that this group operates exactly the same way. The environment might be different. It's online rather than in person, but the strategy for recruitment is exactly the same. So isolation is the cornerstone of, in my opinion, of what happened to Celeste. And I think that as she became more isolated, as she became more reliant on him, I think that her sense of boundaries would have eroded, her sense of self would have eroded. The little feisty Celeste that we saw of her calling him the R word, right? You like to do that to kids. She calls him out in front of everybody. I think that would have slowly diminished over time. And you know what we see at the end, in my opinion, is just this sad image of Celeste. And thank you to Njaz for gifting a reporter room membership. That is so nice of you. Thank you so much, Njaz, for gifting that. If you say thank you to Njaz. And thank you to Michael for the $1.90 super sticker. That is so kind of you. Thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate that. And thank you and welcome Dr. Edward Moskowitz for becoming a Reporter Room channel member. I'm so glad that you decided to become a member of Reporter Room family. And I want to thank Njaz, wow, for gifting 5 Reporter Room memberships. That is so kind of you, Njaz. Thank you so, so much. And I also want to say thank you to Jenny Lang 2464 for the super sticker. She says, Happy New Year, everyone, and Jessica. Thank you so much. That is so kind of you. And thank you for wishing us all a Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too, Jenny. Thank you very, very much. All right, so let me see. I was looking for the 1s and the 2s. And Jazz is asking, would everybody please give this a thumbs up? It does. It lets the algorithm know that I'm doing a good job. Lockie says, is the selfie he posted the next morning after January 2nd? Are you talking about which selfie? I'm not really sure which one you're talking about. Which selfie? I have so many photos of him. If you could be more specific, I can answer it. Della DNK says, David is seriously sick in the head, in my opinion. Hey, Deanna. Michael. But the only thing I can think about is that maybe there is a lot more going on here that we just aren't aware of. And hey, Chrisanne, it's good to see you. Maybe there is a big group to go through. Maybe there's more people they're trying to round up. You know, how high up does this go? It's possible it goes up way higher than we thought. Hi, Marie. I'm glad you're here. But I just do wonder what Celeste was thinking in that last photograph that Steve Fisher released on January the 2nd. Let me just grab a couple more comments. With $4 to $5 million house wants a car. Nobody with a $4 to $5 million house wants a, dirty car in front of the house, or maybe it's smelly. I don't know, but yeah. And now we're hearing that the neighbors, I don't know if you guys heard this, but the neighbors said that, I guess the neighbors that called in the complaint about the car said that there was like they smelled something and they had their dog pass away. So they had buried the dog in the backyard and they were about to dig up the dog and rebury it. And when the car was moved by the tow truck, the Tesla, they realized it wasn't coming from the dog, because the smell went away when the Tesla was moved, you guys. Cabling said the only person David could keep were children. No, exactly. I agree. I agree. He was predatory, in my opinion, allegedly. And this is my email if you want to send me any tips. Karen says, I believe she realized how inappropriate he was as she got older and wanted to go home, but he wouldn't let her. I'm worried about that too. Okay, so I do see some ones here. Here we go. We got a 1. Thank you for modding today, Cabling. A 1. And Jess says that David couldn't risk Celeste talking. Veronica. Oh, you can back up the poll. You can back it up. I just wanted to know if you guys thought that this was a pattern. That you think he was dropping breadcrumbs. Do you think all of this, or do you think all these images that I'm showing just aren't related at all? Put a 2 if you think they're not related, and a 1 if you think that there is a pattern here. Is kind of the paraphrasing what I asked. Karen says she does look so sad in that picture. She does. She does. And Justice, thank you to everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. Tammy says she looks sad and older. Yeah. And I think that, and here's David, fake crying on stage, in my opinion, trying to get some sympathy for himself. Oh, poor me. He has to hide his face, though, in my opinion, because in my opinion, there were no tears. There were no tears. So he has to hide his face. She also said she missed her mom and sister, and David told her it wasn't possible to go back home. That just is heartbreaking. So the poll was, if you think that he was snitching on himself, put a 1 in the chat. If you think he was not, put a 2 in the chat. She does look sad, MJ. You're right. Lucky to Tara says, imagine how she felt when she was left out of the photos. Yeah, all those photos that I showed you that they took backstage, and she wasn't allowed to be in any of them. And I think, probably at that point, she would have still felt like he was, in love with her. But I think that as time would have gone on, I think, he would have become more and more awful because, again, that's the game, right? She is sweet. Oh, and you can watch it and then catch up. Oh, it's snowing in London today. How lovely. High touch of class. Linda said the one with the hoodie on the floor. Yeah. If you haven't seen that, I'll add that to the lineup next time. Okay, I see some more in the poll. I see a 1 and another 1 and another 1. So we got some 1s. Veronica put 1. Oop. Maria put 1. Chris Ann put 1. Moody Mystery says, I really hope we have an arrest. I hope so too. I mean, there has to be something more going on that we just can't see. Patterned and premeditated. I agree. That's my feeling about it too, but it's okay if you have a different opinion. We are not all going to agree on every single thing. Deanna put a 1. Moody Mystery, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Holly put purple hearts for Celeste. So nice. See Magic put a 1. And Jazz put a 1. Moody put purple hearts. Touch of Class put purple hearts. And Lucky says she was starting to realize what their relationship was. I think so too. And she was starting to realize who he was, right? Because she called them out even on that one video. So I agree. Lucky says she already felt unloved by her family and then him. I think that I think her family did love her, but I think that she may have felt like they didn't. And I think he would have stoked that. I mean, I think all teenagers go through a phase, because how do you grow up and move away from your family, right? You grow up and move away by getting autonomy. And how do most teenagers do that? They become resentful and angry of their parents. That's how they break away. Otherwise, if they stayed enmeshed with their parents, they wouldn't be able to grow up and go away to college and move out. So yeah, I think it's a problem. And Moody says, without SF investigates this, I think this would have been hushed, in my opinion. That's why it's so important that we, keep talking about it. Up. Maria says, rest in peace, Celeste. And Lucky says, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I wanted to tell you I'm going to be doing another video today. I wasn't planning it. Let me take this down. Let me show you guys this really quick. This is wild. This, I just want to show you. After this, we're going to talk about Spencer and Monique Tepe, and they were found done away with on the second floor of their house. There was with the kids. They had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. The kids were alive and left fine. And these two were done away with. No one broke in. Nothing was stolen. So was this somebody that they knew? How did the perpetrator get into the house? Some people think it was an ex of some type. So we're going to cover this case today too in a separate live stream if you want to join me for that. And I do want to do a big shout out to Njaz, our executive producer. Thank you so much for all you do. You just really are a godsend, in my opinion. And thank you to our producers, Sasha Angel, George Brown, Michael L. Cole, Christy Valentine, and Tina Hernandez. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you. And thank you to our channel members. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do some of the smaller niche cases like this one. So this really does help a lot with supporting the channel. Shakeda Virgo says thank you to UK Bling. And Njaz just dropped a link in the top chat if you guys want to follow me over to find out more about Spencer and Monique Tepe and what happened to them, because it is really sad. Can we rule out an ex-husband? And Eileen's asking. I'm not ruling anybody out yet, because I think there, it could have been an ex. It could have been, somebody was having some type of an affair that we don't know about yet. It could be something like that. We just don't know. But it could also be somebody that just was angry for some type of business dispute too. I mean, I don't know. And thank you so much for your gifted channel memberships, Njaz, and thank you so much for your super chats. I put the last two before because it wasn't until after the live stream was over that I realized that I hadn't posted the thank you for the super chat. So follow me over. We're going to go there right now. And thank you so much for your support for Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Please say her name and drop. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It's free and it helps me out a lot. Give this a thumbs up and drop me a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below.